Now, if I agree to have a lockbox on my home, how safe is that?
It's easier to break the window than it is to break the electronic lockbox that we use. It's a super lockbox. The great feature about that lockbox is we as agents can track who's been through the property, what time they were at the property, and also find out if someone forgot the door open or left lights on. We can go back and track it to see exactly who was the last person through. So, like I said, it's easy to break down the door and also to break a window than to get into that lockbox. The lockbox has jammed on us before, and I can't even get it open with a screwdriver and a hammer. So it's very, very difficult to get into that box and obtain that key.
Okay, let's talk about after the marketing is done, we have somebody who's interested in the home. What does the agent do then?
At that point, obviously, notify the sellers that we have an offer. And most offers, if not all offers, are in writing. Verbal offers are something that we don't deal with. We'd like to see it in writing. That way we can present it to the sellers. And at that point, one or two things are usually done. Either a telephone call, depending on where the seller is located. If they're local, what I like to do is bring the offer over to the seller, sit down, and then go over the offer step by step, just to outline and make sure that they understand what the offering price, because not only is it price, but there's also terms and there are dates that are an important part of an offer.
Okay. Now, I know that if you're my agent, we have an asking price. What more information does an agent need?
With an asking price?
Yeah.
Usually it depends on the selling side. The asking price is the number that you stand behind all the way, because again, there's the agency relationship, which we talked about in one of the past episodes.
So let's talk about that right now, okay? Agency relationship. I say I'm hiring you. What does that mean?
The seller side versus the buyer side. Again, the buyer more than likely, I would say 80% of the time, if not 90% of the time, will have a buyer's agent that would be representing them.
Okay. How do you recommend handling an offer that is less than the asking price?
Less than that means the seller's agent's fiduciary responsibility is to the seller, is to look out for the seller's best interest in this case. So there's certain information that is private and shouldn't be disclosed to the other side or to the other party. So a good agent will not disclose that information. It could be a marital, it could be a relocation, it could be anything that would put the seller in a position of being vulnerable where the buyers would think that the seller would take less monies. So it's important that when you do find an agent, you find an agent that's going to represent you to the fullest. So once you do have that, you've got that agent that represents you, then it becomes the asking price. It depends, and again, there are many factors that go into it, because it depends on what the terms are. Is there a mortgage? Is it a large mortgage that they're applying for? Is it cash? When is the closing date? So not only it depends on money, but it also depends on terms. This could be a seller that needs to be relocated, and they need to be in North Carolina before the end of September. So it's a question of, are they happy with the money that is being offered for the offering price? There's a lot of factors that go into it. Time is also. If you've been on the market for less than 24 hours or 48 hours, a seller's in a better position to negotiate or not to negotiate at all, stay firm on their price. Letting this buyer know that potentially there could be another party that moves forward that might outbid them. So it depends. It depends on the situation. In most cases, if you do have multiple interested parties, the seller's in the driver's seat, which is a good thing. So,
okay, let's talk a little bit about what happens after I've accepted an offer. Okay. Let's just say I signed it, the offer went back. What happens next?
At that point, it's interesting because I mentioned before that you were the seller in the driving seat controlling. At that point, once an offer is accepted, the buyer is more or less in the driver's seat, because now they've got, in most cases, contingencies. One of the first contingencies is to have a home inspection, to make sure that they inspect the property by a licensed professional, to make sure that everything is to the okay with the house, let's just say. Everything is in working order. Once an inspection is done, it's done anywhere between, it could be 3 days, 4 days, 7 days is the average, it could be 10 days. Once that property is inspected and everything is fine, then you move on to the purchase and sale stage. At the purchase and sale, Massachusetts happens to be a 2-contract state. The offer was the original contract. You move to the purchase and sale, which your attorney, which I highly recommend that you hire a professional, an attorney, not a trial attorney, but a real estate attorney. We don't want to turn a transaction into a court case. Make sure that the attorney represents you to the fullest in making sure there's language in that contract, again, that protects you.
Okay, how do you recommend handling things that come up during an inspection? But before you answer that question, I have another question.
Okay.
Should a homeowner have an inspection before we list the property?
We have homeowners that do have inspections just to make sure that there's no surprises when their property does go in, when they do sell their property. Again, you can go either or on that. I don't recommend it, but there are some that will do it.
Why don't you recommend it?
Because if the issue is going to come up, obviously you're going to have to take care of it. Either or, you're going to have to take care of it. So why spend the money if another inspector is going to pick up on that? Relocation, we do a lot of relocation through our company, and relocation companies will do a pre-inspection beforehand. And many, many times I will see that there are items that will still come up during inspection that wasn't picked up by the first inspector. So you're paying that extra money. That's my opinion.
Okay, let's say that somebody offered me my asking price. Their inspector came through and said the roof is 15 years old. It's not a new roof. It's not leaking. And the buyer comes back to me and complains about the roof not being in good condition. How would you handle something like that?
In that case, it depends. And again, the situation, is this the only buyer? Were there other buyers? Were there multiple bids? If that's the case, then the seller is back into the driver's seat where they have more control, where they can say, we're going to go back to the other parties to see if they're interested, or work with that party. Depends on what it is, what it could be. Some buyers think that once they have a home inspection, they can come back and start discounting the price. That's not the case. For a home inspection, the key thing is to check to make sure that the property is structurally sound, or there are major defects that the buyer wasn't aware of when they originally walked with the property. So if an agent does tell, if a sales agent relates to a buyer's agent that the roof is older, the heating system is older, it's to make them aware of it and to disclose that obviously these are issues that the buyer will have to take on later on down the road at some time.
Okay. Question. What if I get water in my basement when it rains? Do you have to tell the other party?
Well, we use a form, which is a seller's disclosure form, which does ask that question. That way, it's out on the table and we know ahead of time if there's an issue. And in most cases, sellers will say that they did have an issue with water, especially during the past spring, and obviously this year, 2010 spring, where almost everyone did at some point receive some type of water seepage, or in some cases flooding in their home. So that is a disclosable item. And what I find out is if you don't say something when you move in, your old neighbors will tell your new neighbors that they did see pumping and water activity in the basement. So that's obviously something that should be disclosed, just as if any defects in the home.
Okay. So we go to the purchase and sale agreement. Don't you use a standard form?
There is a Greater Boston real estate form that we use, or a Massachusetts Association, a realtor form that we use. It's pretty standard. Sometimes it depends on the attorney. Attorneys, they will use that, or they'll have their own boilerplate, which is based off of that same. It's a similar language to what is with the state forms, and basically just everything that was in the offer is then carried over into the purchase and sale, and then attorneys will add their riders with more legalese on their end, protecting their clients on both sides.
Okay. Who drafts that?
It depends. Sometimes attorneys will draft them, and again, if an attorney doesn't have it available, we, as the listing agent, will usually draft that and then forward it over to the buyer's attorney and the seller's attorney.
Okay, so in the purchase and sale agreement, we have the information about the price, and of course the inspection's been done already, so we don't have inspection contingencies.
Correct.
We may have something in there about any repairs that I agreed to make or any changes there.
Correct.
What other contingencies should I be concerned about?
Well, other